This isn't gonna work well.
It's fun.
Just about a year ago, I set out on a mission to build a hobby room in my garage and put a model railroad in it and get it complete up to an operational main line. And I'm here to tell you, I've done it. And in this video, I'm gonna show it to you. Hi, my name is Steve Brown and welcome to It's My Railroad. On this channel, we bring you the highest quality modeling videos we possibly can, showing you how to use regular guy techniques to build great models, scenes, dioramas, and even model railroad stuff like you see right here. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure and subscribe. And then don't forget to push that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. Well, I am totally stoked right now because I have an operational main line. This train that you see right here, we're about to embark on a journey where it is going to travel nearly 200 lineal feet and take about 7 minutes at scale speeds to get all the way around. And I've just been digging watching that happen. You know, I designed this thing so that I could have a computer control the main line for me if I want. That way I can have 2 or 3 trains running at one time, and within that I can be running switching ops, put my own train out on the main line, send it to somewhere else on the layout, and just fully immerse myself in the whole model railroad thing, which is totally awesome if you ask me. The opening scene we're going to look at right now is this scene right here. This is Port Smith. This is a project I'm actually doing for Model Railroader Video Plus, and I've got the deck on it already. I made that out of drywall mud. You can see that in the video. I got the seawall in and weathered, getting ready to put some structures in here, pour the water, and move on. Behind me, I've started building a styrofoam mountain thing, and I'm doing it one piece at a time, kind of seeing how it goes. And in the next few weeks, I'll have that all kind of carved up, covered, and painted at least, so it didn't look like a white wedding cake sitting right here on the railroad. But I've got Port Smith North and Port Smith South. Both of them are served by the next scene I'll show you as the train pulls out and heads onto the main line. This is so cool. Now that our train's gone by, here we have the Brownsville yard. You can see in the back, I got my double track main right here. And then I have an arrival departure track. Again, the arrival and departure part is handled by a computer someday. Right now, I just control it by switching the turnouts myself. But this track right here is a classification track for the Bentleyville yard, which you're gonna see in a minute. Then I've got sort of this through track that goes over to Port Smith North. I also use it for staging for Port Smith. Then I've got a classification track here for Switch Junction, which hopefully we'll see in a minute. And then a couple of miscellaneous tracks. One of them actually is going to be used for staging an area I'll show you in just a minute, where I believe I'm going to put a sawmill. So that's my main yard down here on the bottom deck. We'll show you the main yard on the top deck a little bit later. So there's a couple other areas here I want to show you as the train passes through. I believe I'm going to put a sawmill right here, and we have a classification track in the Brownsville yard we just talked about. And I'm also going to put my engine maintenance facility here that's just built for switchers. It was a project I did for Model Railroader Video Plus. Can't wait to incorporate that into the layout. Down there, we're going to end up putting our town of Brownsville. It's just going to be a town, not rail served. I always wanted to just build me a town. So we're going to see that down there at some point. As the train passes again on the backside of Port Smith, it enters this canyon that I'm working on and goes onto the back of the layout, where it starts a 2% grade that'll lead it through the mezzanine deck of my first deck and ultimately up to the top deck. So let's go to the back of the layout right now and take a look at that. So now I'm standing outside on my driveway looking at the back of the layout. Now you can see here the train coming up through the bottom of the 2 decks I've got back here. And something to note is I do not have any cork road bed back here. There didn't seem to be a need for it. I didn't want to go through the expense and the time to lay it. Also, the track is pretty much just tacked in place. Most of the rail joints are not soldered. Instead, I have feeders going to each piece of track. This way I can move things around a little bit and not have to worry so much about expansion and contraction when my garage can go anywhere from 30 degrees to 120 degrees over the course of the year. Still on the back side of the layout, this time I'm actually standing inside my garage. You can barely see back in there, but I have a crossover that's controlled by 2 cobalt switch motors. That is so when my train comes back up from switch junction, it can cross over to the correct side of the main line. I run right-handed traffic here. And then here, as the train gets ready to head back out onto the main part of the layout, you can see I've got the turnout that'll take the train off the main line and run it down to switch junction. That's also controlled by a cobalt switch motor. While we're back here, I thought I'd show you real quick the sort of the brains of the operation here until I get the computer installed. Those are 2 DS64s and 2 BD4s. The BD4s are block detectors, sense where the train's at, and then sends that signal to the DS64, which throws a turnout so I can go from a double track main to a single track main and then back to the double track main. So while we're back here, might as well show you everything. This is my sort of power distribution center here. I use these switches to control my 120 volt power. This one here will turn on the DCC. You can see it's on right now. This switch here turns on the deck lighting. This switch right here is actually an interlock, so I can turn off the garage door opener so somebody didn't accidentally open the garage door on the back side of the layout. And finally, this switch down here will turn on my DC bus. I use DC power to control the LEDs in the signals and also some of the lit structures I have for the layout. So this is very handy, very useful. It's worth the investment in time it took to get all that power run. As the train comes back onto the main part of the layout, it does so in a scene called Fertile Valley. If you've been watching my videos for a while, then you were there with us when we sort of built that scene out. But it travels through Fertile Valley to this set of signals right here. Now I got those signals connected to the turnout just ahead of it. So when the turnout is aligned for this uphill traffic, that LED you see there is green, will be green. And when it's aligned for the downhill traffic, you'll see that LED will turn back to red. As the train passes through Fertile Valley, it ends up back here behind my logging camp scene. Now, if you guys have been with me again since the beginning, you know that the first project we did was to revamp my logging camp. Since then, I sort of tore it out of the old layout, brought it over here and integrated it into the new layout. It's got some work left to do on it, and we're gonna get to that in the coming months. After passing behind the logging camp, it passes above a scene that I'm now calling Beggar's Canyon. This used to be the Virgin River Gorge right here, but I really don't have a place for the water to come from anymore, so I'm gonna turn it into a dry wash. Moving just a little further over, that is my coal mine scene. Doesn't look like much right now, but that's it. And I've got some plans for how I want to reintegrate that into my operations. It might actually turn into an iron ore mine, but either way, we're going to get to that one of these days. And then since we're over here anyway, this is the switch junction module. Now again, the logging camp, the coal mine, the switch junction all came over from the old layout, and I've reintegrated them into this new layout. Switch junction's got some industries in it. It needs a rehab. And again, one of these days, we're gonna get to doing that. Now, as the train passes above switch junction, it again heads back out to the back of the layout. Let's go take a look at that real quick. And as the train pulls back onto the back of the layout, there's some video I shot earlier in the week that I'd like to share with you right now. All right, so we're on the back of the layout. Once again, this time we'll talk about the top deck for a minute. First thing to point out is this leg I put in right here. I was having trouble with the locomotive going downhill and derailing in this turn right here. So the first thing I did is I messed around with the radius of the turn, and then going downhill, boom, everything was awesome sauce. But then when the trains came back up, it derailed through that turn, which it didn't do previously. So obviously I had a problem. I actually have relayed this piece of track maybe 4 times now, trying to fix this problem. When suddenly the solution presented itself, here's what I did. This benchwork used to stop about here. I ran it all the way out as far as I can go to get the maximum radius turn I could get out of this part of the layout. And I also put this leg in to tweak the benchwork up to smooth the transition around that turn, and making those corrections fix the problem. Train just runs right through there, boom, 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 not even a problem. I've got this piece of cardboard sitting here because when the trains are coming downhill, occasionally they derail. It happens no matter what. I'll get in a derailment, and the thing is, I've lost a couple locomotives and a couple of cars because they've pitched over the side and just on the concrete below. That doesn't work for me, baby. So I put this in there if there is a derailment, which frankly I haven't had in a little while now. If there is a derailment, the cars at least stay up here on the bench work, and I can open this door up and fix it. Couple other things to point out. I've got this tortoise switch motor right here, and I've got this Cobalt IP digital turnout switch motor sitting right here. The tortoise one hooks to a DS64 on the other side of the layout and is controlled by a block detector, also made by Digitrax, the BD4. When the train's coming, the block detector senses it, runs it to the DS64 and switches the tortoise switch motor so that I can go from a double track main to a single track main back to a double track main over there in Fertile Valley. The IP Cobalt switch motor is here so that when I want to pull that big container train off the main layout, I've got a siding back here that I can just pull it onto, and then I can run some other trains and stuff while the yard and everything in the computer software are under development. As the train finishes that climb on the back of the layout, it pops through onto the front of the layout in a place I call Caliente Flats. Caliente Flats is going to be a cement plant with a quarry and some cool things I'm going to do to conceal that opening in the backdrop. Okay, so let me just jump right back in here for just a second. Up here on the top deck, not much here but the main line and then some of the bench work for what we're going to do in the future. But to give you an idea what's coming, we come along the main line track and hit this turnout. This is where the arrival departure track for the Bentleyville yard happens, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. Behind it is sort of the downhill mainline track, and then way back here, this is the track that comes up and feeds Caliente Flats. It makes its way all the way around to a place called Carlington. I'll show you in just a second, and ultimately to the Bentleyville yard. But I'm going to put a commuter station right here. Matter of fact, I'm going to have 3 commuter stations on the track. One here, one over there, one down there, and we'll show you those in future videos. But the idea is the computer will run a commuter train for me all the way through the layout, stopping at these stations for, I don't know, 30 seconds, and then moving on. And the beauty is, with computer software controlling that, the through freights and stuff won't ram into it when it stops. So I'm looking forward to see how that develops. I'm sure there's gonna be some tweaking involved because the regular guy way is never the ideal way, but it works in the end. Let me just move that camera just a little bit more, and then back over here, this is where the Bentleyville yard actually occurs. There's classification tracks for various places on the layout that you've heard me talk about, you'll hear me talk about, including a classification track that takes it all the way down to the Brownsville yard on the second deck. Moving that camera just a little bit more over here, back up in here, we see the downhill side of the track. And then this area is going to be reserved for some kind of an engine house, locomotive storage, and what have you. But what's really cool is what happens right back up in here. This turnout right here is where the train rejoins the main line from the Bentleyville yard. Now I'm going to have it be a crossover right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the train to either get back on the main or to continue down to a place I call Riley, which has got a freight terminal and some other cool stuff I'll show you in just a second. Coming off of that, there is 2 tracks that will be here. Both of them can be departure tracks up here in the yard, and the computer is going to be able to decide which one to bring that down through. I'm also using these 2 tracks. Either one of them can be used as a drill track, which is the track a switcher will use to pull a train out of the yard and then push it back in. As the train passes through the Bentleyville yard, it makes its way over and passes by this straight piece of track that's going to have another commuter station on it. But then it goes around an area that I call, again, Riley. Riley is going to have a major freight terminal there where trucks from all over the area will bring in stuff that'll get put on rail cars, shipped to the Bentleyville yard, and then who knows where it goes from there. Also, some container loads will be coming in, getting loaded onto well cars, and also shipped through the Bentleyville yard, through the Brownsville yard, and over to the port. After passing through Riley, the train makes its way up a modest 2% grade and ends up passing through a scene that we're calling Carlington. Now, Carlington is going to be an industrial switching area that's going to be modeled after Model Railroader Video Plus's tar branch. You can see here a track plan for that scene. I'm looking forward to doing that. They did theirs in HO scale, mine's in scale. They have a slightly different footprint that I'm going to see if I can modify and replicate to the best of my ability. There's going to be a brewery there, there's going to be a lumber yard there, there's going to be a textile mill there, and some other cool stuff. So I'm really looking forward to getting on that scene when the time comes. And that's pretty much it. From here down, the train just makes its way back down the main line over to Port Smith. Let's just follow along and enjoy the ride. Well, there you go, rail fans. That is 1 year of model railroading. Finally had the main line that I've always wanted, and I really enjoy watching the trains go round and round. You know, at some point I actually got to get back to work on this thing and build some of these scenes, and that'll be for future videos. But thanks for joining me for this video. I hope you had a great time hanging out with me. And you know, next video, the very next one, I'm gonna take you from this being a garage all the way to here. A lot of stuff happened along the way. I know a lot of you are new to our channel. Want to get you all caught up, but that'll be for next time. Thanks again for joining me this time on It's My Railroad. And until next time, my name is Steve Brown. Rail on, my friends.